Okay, hello everyone and welcome. I'll introduce myself and I'll hand over to Sarah so she can introduce herself. So my name's Carla Gamma. I'm the lead principal social worker for West North Hants Council. And over to Sarah.
And I'm Sarah Morris and I'm the principal social worker for adults in North Hants Council. And you'll see from our first slide that obviously this references Maxine Clark as well, who's our colleague, the principal social worker for children's at NCT, and we pulled together this training with her and we've delivered it in person, haven't we, Carla, across the social care teams. So she's not with us today, but she did a huge amount of work towards this.
Yeah, so we wanted to demonstrate that it's not just talking about it but doing. So we did do this together, sort of adults and children's working together, and Max was involved in developing this all with us. Okay, so let me just check what I've got on the next slide. Bear with me before we go on to the next slide, just to get a bit of a feel for the room. What if you could put in the chat in the chat, please, a couple of words when you think family, what comes to mind? Why are you here today linking this to think family? Anything come to mind? So what made you sign up to this? There's no wrong how families are involved in the process with social care, okay? Involving them, I'm assuming them people in patient care, okay? Any other sort of thoughts? The recent SAR, says Catherine, yes. Partnership working, absolutely. Wider family needs, definitely. Thinking about the whole family. This is part of the 10-year plan for the NHS, involving families as a whole, keeping families together, ensuring people know the process and they can have a different view on social care, as there is quite a stigma. That's quite interesting. Yeah. So all of what you're saying is exactly what this session is about. I'm not sure. It's nothing new that we'll be talking about, but it's always important to refresh. And as Catherine put in the comment, it is linked to a SAR that has been recently published. Can I get the next slide, please, Chloe? So you'll see that that's pretty much all of what you've said is what I think family approach is about. So it looks at assessing needs and providing services to individuals while appreciating that the health, well-being and behaviour of children and their parents, carers are interrelated. It's about identifying and responding to the needs of the wider family, not just the child, not just the young person, not just the adult that you're working with. So it's looking at using our professional curiosity and making sure that we're confident to be professionally curious, to consider situations of other members of the family, asking questions, but not just asking those questions, following up on any concerns that you might have. But ultimately is about working in partnership, as somebody had said in the chat, with other agencies across adult and children's services to support the families that we are working with. So Sarah and I are from adults, but just because we work with adults, if we're going in to see a family, obviously our focus will be on the adult, of course, but it's looking at the wider family, who's living in that house, who, you know, what are the dynamics here. So it's having that perspective and that way of practice from the beginning. So that's what the Think Family approach is all about. Can I have the next slide, please, Chloe? So as we've already alluded to, the why are we doing this? Obviously because it's very important, but we can see that, and I said just a few minutes ago, it's not something new. However, we have had the SAR 24 whereby an adult with care and support needs sadly died. Within that household, there were 3 generations. There were different professionals working with the young person children within that family, and sadly the adult was missed. What I've got here just because I thought would be helpful. So it's already on the NSAB website. So I'm just going to share with you quickly the the information that you can see exactly what it was relating to. So here you'll see, so this is from the NSAB website, so you'll see all of the information, an executive summary and the sort of learning in relation to this SAR. So you'll see here the background was that this was an adult 51-year-old woman admitted to hospital. When EMAS attended, they found her to be severely malnourished, covered in dirt, insect bites on her body, head lice. She was also found to have other physical health issues. And sadly, she died. She died following deterioration in her condition. So as I said, there was a lot of input from professionals with the young person, children in the house. But the fact that this lady was severely malnourished, I believe she hadn't come downstairs to the property for a long time, hadn't left the property in a long time. It was missed. So that's why we're really trying to refocus the importance of thinking family in this sense. Yeah, as I was saying, it's about reading those SARs that have been published. It's about ensuring that we take responsibility for reading, embedding, applying that to our practice, because you'll know this expression, safeguarding is everyone's business. Can I have the next slide, please? And I'm going to hand over to Sarah.
Thank you. Yeah, so we wanted to talk you through the legislation that adults and children's social care workers work to, and sort of show you that legislation does lay out in it the responsibilities that we may have to the adults or children that are related to the child or adult that we're working with. So, for example, in adult social care, the primary piece of legislation we work with is the Care Act. And at the centre of the Care Act is this concept of the importance of promoting an individual's well-being. So as a local authority, we have a responsibility to promote the well-being of adults with care and support needs within our area. And when we assess somebody, we are looking at how their social care needs impact on their well-being. And you'll see in that circle, that bottom segment talks about domestic, family and personal relationships. So what that means is, if we are working with an adult who is a parent and their disability impacts on their ability to parent their child, we have responsibilities to support them. And then, thanks, Chloe. The other big area, obviously, within the Care Act is safeguarding. And you'll see there, section 42, you'll know this, our responsibilities where we have reasonable cause to suspect that an adult in our area has care and support needs, is experiencing or at risk of abuse and neglect, and as a result of those needs is unable to protect himself or herself against abuse or neglect or the risk of it. And I think this is really important, because I think when we were talking with our childcare colleagues, we were talking about the fact that therefore, if they are working with a young person, but actually they identify that the adult, that the adult in the house, whether that be a parent or maybe another family member, has care and support needs, or is at risk of abuse. Say there are issues of domestic abuse going on, and actually the adult has care and support needs, then actually they have a responsibility to make that referral through to adult social care, that whilst they are working with the child, that they still have responsibilities to those adults that they're seeing within the property. If the person may have a need for care and support, then it might be about having a conversation with that adult and saying, oh, do you know about adult social care? There are people there who may be able to support you. If they have concerns about safeguarding, then it may be about talking with them about those concerns, or making a referral if they think the concerns are significant enough. Thank you.
Okay, and just on that note, we've actually had a few calls, haven't we, Sarah, from delivering this training to our adult and children practitioners. People have been in contact, say, oh, I'm not sure, this has sort of happened, what should I do? So we've been really so it's had a positive impact in that sense of people sort of taking this training back into practice and really thinking, okay, hold on, I'm working with this child, but bit concerned about mum, she might need a bit of help here. So we have had some calls in relation to that, so it's had a positive impact so far. So in relation to children's legislation, two main legislation, you've got the Children Act 1989, specifically care planning, placement and case review. You've got Working Together to Safeguard Children, recently updated December 2023, I believe. And the Working Together to Safeguard Children is really around looking at multi-agency collaborative working. And we've also got Section 11 of the Children Act 2004. So that places duties on all sorts of organisations, agencies and individuals to make sure that their functions and any services that they contract out to others are discharged having regard to the need to safeguard and promote the welfare of children. So just to illustrate the importance of safeguarding is everybody's business. As an adult practitioner, if I'm seeing a child, and vice versa. So if you want to know a little bit more about the sort of statutory duties around children, we've kept the links on there, as we have for the adult as well in the previous slides. So, links to theories, models and tools. So thinking holistically, thinking about the family, thinking about the individuals, thinking about how the individuals make up that family. There are lots of different theories and models and things that we can think about here. Obviously, the first one that comes to mind, you can think about systems theory, strengths-based, goes throughout. Family model, but one thing that we really wanted to highlight was the genograms, ecomaps and culturograms, which some of you may or may not know what they are. So basically it's a visual or pictorial representation of the people involved in that person's life. Depending on whether you use a genogram or an ecomap, it will show you what the quality of the relationship is it a good one, is it not so good at the moment, in terms of how they're interacting, how they're feeling towards each other. So what we've done previously, and this had a massive impact in the previous sessions we've done, didn't it, Sarah? We've actually shown the ecomap. So genogram is usually just the family. Ecomap is all other people involved in the person's life. We've shown the ecomap of Victoria Climbié, which many of you may remember. She died many years ago. Wasn't it the 20th anniversary that came up recently? I think it was. So what I'm going to do is show you Victoria Climbié's ecomap so that you can see that visual representation. You can see how actually there were so many different professionals involved in this little girl's life, and sadly she did die. So I'm just going to share that now, so just bear with me and I'll give you a couple of minutes just to digest it, because there's quite a lot to digest there in terms of
I think what was really interesting, Carla, wasn't it, was how in the training sessions we did with children's and adults workers, obviously these are things that are used a lot more by children's social care workers.
Yeah. So
they were very used to the tools and used to using them. Adults social care workers were actually really excited by them and how useful they can be for mapping out those relationships and getting them clear in your head and understanding those strengths.
Yeah. I mean, we've got lots of different professionals here on the session today, which is fantastic. So one thing we took from adults was, actually, this is something we're going to take back to our to our senior management. See, at least I remember saying that, and I've spoken to mine to look at. Maybe it's something we could implement, because it does. It's pictorial. It's helpful to see to gain that bigger picture. So can you see Victoria's eco map? Has it come up?
Yeah.
See.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
thank
has.
you. I can't see the Teams because I've got this open. So you'll see Victoria's in the middle. There were nurses, there was paediatrician, housing officer, police, nurse, social workers, hospital, distant relative here, the church, teacher, so education. There are so many different professionals and people that were involved in this little girl's life. But and I think it comes down to, and that's usually what comes up time and time again, which is that lack of communication between agencies as well. So it's really trying to focus on feeling comfortable reaching out to each other as professionals. If in doubt, pick up that phone, have that conversation. It's really trying to get people comfortable doing that, rather than, oh, I'm not sure if I can. No, pick up that phone, have that conversation. If it's not, then it's fine. You've contacted, you followed up. But actually, if that is relevant, then you've done the right thing as well. So definitely, it's about those conversations between professionals, so that we've got that picture of what's going on in that household. Chloe, could I have the slides back, please?
And I think it's a really good demonstration, isn't it, of a lot of different people, a lot of different agencies who would have had a lot of different information, which, if it had been put together, could have given a much clearer picture. And that's where I think family approach, is so important for us in our work. It's really supportive to us. Not only is it better for the people we're working with, it's better for us because it helps us and supports us to make sure we've got all the information we need to be working with that person and their family.
Absolutely. And another point which could be around, it avoids the person have to repeat themselves time and time again, because I'm thinking, if I didn't work in social care, I wouldn't know how this works. I might think, well, I've told that person, surely they're going to tell that person. People make assumptions, don't they? So if we are sharing that information, it does allow us to do better, doesn't it? Can I have the next slide, please? At the end of the slides, you'll get the slides. There's lots of resources that we've put in there. We've included Victoria's Eco Map as a reminder, and we've included guidance if you wanted to do that within your organisations. Nothing stops you from, if you're working with a social worker, saying, oh, is there one? We may not have one, but nothing stops you from asking that, or developing something together. So we have got lots of resources on the last slide that you can then read and do and change within your organisations, if that's something you think would work for you.
Thank you. So Chloe is now very cleverly going to move us all into some more breakout rooms. And what we want you to do is to consider, how can you demonstrate professional curiosity when working with families? So what we mean by that is, when you go into somebody's house, what is it you might be seeing or hearing that would raise questions for you, and that you might need to ask further questions about? So not just about the person you're working with, but about other people within that household. What might you be seeing or hearing that would raise questions for you? So how long do people have, please, Chloe?
That's completely up to you. How long would you like them to be?
It is
5, 2,
3, 10 minutes.
Yeah. Sounds good. You're all going to be from different organisations, so that's the beauty of it. So there might be things that someone says, oh, this, and you might think, oh, I hadn't thought of that. So that's where the learning is as well. Your conversations are really important as well.
Right, we're good to go.
Thank you very much. Go for it.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Are we back?
I'm not sure.
Indeed.
We are indeed back.
Amy, I just saw your email just now. It was 20 seconds for the activity to end.
It's
so
okay.
What we'll
It's okay.
do is,
It's because we were sitting in there for like 3 minutes. Like, what was the question again? And then then we were all just kind of, I don't know, we were just kind of making up what we thought the question was.
talking. That's good. Discussing between yourselves. Yeah, we'll do that for the next time. For the next time, we'll pop the question in the chat so you guys can copy and paste it onto a Word document so you don't lose track of it. Sorry,
Okay, cool.
Amy. I
No,
literally
it's
just saw it.
fine. We were just like, I don't know what they said.
So did people, does anybody want to tell us what conversations they did have? What were your thoughts on how you demonstrate professional curiosity when working with families?
I think it's
my
about
sharing some. I'm sorry.
Sorry. no, you carry on.
Well, you're in my group, Stephen, so you go for it. It's fine. We'll share it.
I think one of the consensus is not to take things at face value. What you're seeing doesn't necessarily mean it's the truth, is it? And to look around, observe, ask those professional probing questions around that as well. And it is about eyes and ears, isn't it? And communication while you're in that room with them. Yeah.
And I think Stephen raised a really good point in ours around, yes, it is think family, but it's think household. There's a lot of multi-occupancy households, and, you know, it might not be immediate family that are in that house, but who else is living there? And we talked about adult A, like I read a little bit that person hadn't really left the house, didn't really come downstairs. Actually, who else is living in this house? You know, really exploring that with them and identifying that rather than just whoever's in the room.
And that might be really as simple, mightn't it, as the coats that are hanging up in the hallway, or, you know, what are the signs around the house that there might be somebody else living there that you're not aware of? Yeah, thank you. Anybody else got any thoughts?
We also talked about possible verbal aggression, defensiveness from maybe the people that are living either with the child or the adults. And I think citing on my own experience, they can be hesitance in the adults in question to talk while family members are there. So it's a matter of observing, you know, language, body language, and maybe offering an opportunity maybe to see them separately without, again, making it for family to think that, you know, you want to sort of spy on them, but trying to highlight things and say them clearly. So you find such behaviors. And as well, from my experience, when abuse is taking place from especially older our children, parents are keen to go on with the abuse than to lose this child, which again puts us as professionals in this difficult position to say, what do we do with this situation? But in most cases, it's always to discuss with the manager to say, this is the true situation, like when it comes to finances or trying to push mom and dad into a care home, because there's benefits that comes with them going and children running. So you find at times we are in that position where we just have to be, you know, it drives your curiosity at some point. Yeah, that's what we kind of discuss with my team.
And I think you've raised the first point about kind of sort of what are you seeing in terms of the relationships between people, and maybe people being anxious of one another or scared of one another. I think that's a really good one. And I think your point about seeking your manager's advice is a really good one as well, that actually, and that's the other thing about this think family approach, if you're not sure, if you're not certain, actually there may be other people who can help to kind of understand that risk or consider what you need to do next. Maybe that's a nice step. If we just have a look, Chloe, if you don't mind, at the next slide. So these were the points that Maxine, Carla and I came up with. So Who else is living in the house or maybe visiting it frequently? What does the house tell you about who lives there? Who do they talk about? How are the adults able to look after any children? So actually for our childcare colleagues there was a real question about if a parent is struggling to look after their child, why is that actually? Might it be that they've got a social care need themselves that means it's difficult? So are there adults with care and support needs? And actually, if there are, who's supporting them? Are the adults with care and support needs at risk from others? And I think that was that point that you just made then about this question about, do they look like maybe they're scared of other people within the house? And I think, as with the SAR, actually, are you seeing a situation where an adult who it may not be an adult you're working with, but another adult in the house is neglecting themselves? Can they protect themselves? And I think the point that Stephen made about actually that triangulation of information. So actually, just because somebody's told us something, how do we know that to be true? How do we check that out with other people? And again, you know, you made reference to sometimes people being defensive. And actually, as professionals, sometimes we do have to ask those difficult questions to kind of tease things out a bit further where we're not sure. But I think that final point you made leads us on really nicely to the next slide, and a bit more work for you. So having talked about how we demonstrate professional curiosity when working with families, well, how do we do that when working with other professionals? And I suppose that the question here really is, how is it you can be thinking about who might be involved with this household? Because I think, again, you made a good point about not just families, but households, or who should be involved with them. So if you could, you'll be going back into your groups, and again, another 10 minutes, but actually just having a think about what is it you need to be considering with regards to other professionals when you are working with a family, a household.
Yeah, you might want to copy and paste that. I'll put it in the chat and just pop it on the Word document so you don't lose sight of the question, because you can't access this chat once you're in your groups.
Thank you, Chloe. So what you can see here is some thoughts again that Maxine, Carla and I had on this, but what about you? What were you talking about? Anybody want to feed back?
I'll go first.
Thank you.
It's all right. So we were just saying, like, sometimes it's difficult to understand what professionals are involved. And often, you know, when you're dealing with different organisations that don't share the same systems as you, or maybe, you know, it's difficult to get hold of a person, you're kind of going into a situation blind. And often, you know, just on my own experience, sometimes when a person who might be living in a way that probably doesn't suit people's narrative, often they're happy to say, oh, we're not, you know, that person's not under us no more, and kind of dismiss their involvement. And actually, you know, there might be key information in that to you know, support whatever involvement you have. So I think ultimately we're all trying to do the same thing, and that's make the person safe and those around, and support them the best that we can. And I don't think often, you know, people don't just pick up the phone and have a conversation. I think sometimes it's very in isolation, and actually I think that we just need to get better at that, because it helps us having those conversations. That's just been my experience. But you know, and we were saying that in our group, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And generally, you know, if you've got a really good, you know, link with somebody, or you can have those open conversations, you can actually get quite a lot of information. And just being transparent as well, just being really open and honest, and just being like, look, this is my situation and this is where I'm at. How can we pull something together? Because what may be a 30-minute chat with everybody in one room avoid days and hours and many emails of something that can just be kind of pulled together. And ultimately, like, one of the things that always sticks with me within my role is, if ever I was to stand up in court and, you know, they were to question me, why didn't you pull together a professionals meeting? I'd be like, ugh, you know. So it's important. It's everybody's business ultimately, and we're all here to help each other. That's my view.
Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody
Can I,
else got any?
can I do a quick interjection, Sarah? Just
Of
from what
course.
Amy was saying. You were saying about, you know, it's who you know, it's working together. That is so important. And it's knowing what is that professional's role? Because a lot of the time I might think, oh, I don't know, oh, it's the GP that has to do this. Oh, it's the housing officer. And they might think, oh, it's the social worker. But actually, it's not. I might think it's the GP that needs to do X, Y, and Z, or the housing, or whoever, but actually that's not their role. So by having those conversations, establishing those professional relationships with each other as colleagues,
Yeah.
getting to know what the role and remit of each other's role is, also contributes to safeguarding, I believe, because then we're clear on who's doing what, when, how, why, you know, all of that. So yeah.
I think that feeds very much into expectations as well. There's expectations from other professionals onto other services.
Yeah.
I'll give an example, like with mental health. We expect you to do something about it. Unfortunately, we can't. There's nothing we can do. Or you need to put him as an inpatient. We can't do that. So there's those expectations and measuring them. And the other thing is, if you're the only person with that concern, that could be a very lonely place. Particularly if the rest of your team are saying, we got no concerns. It could be a very lonely place and you'd be fighting by yourself.
And actually 99% of the time, if we all just sat in a room together, came up with a kind of risk assessment or a plan of how we're going to move forward, it can be sort of done and resolved quickly. Whereas when it becomes lengthy, it ends up growing arms and legs of something that probably didn't necessarily need to happen.
No, and everybody's protecting themselves now, aren't they? Because we've got pressure around the system like we'd never had before. You know, every service is under so much pressure, so everybody's now protecting themselves with everything.
And I don't think it helps that we can't access each other's systems as well. I think that's always a sticking point, even if it's just on a low level of just seeing who's what, where, how, rather than sort of the intricate information, but just getting a generalized understanding of actually these people have been involved for the last 6 months, and going from there.
I think that's very true. I think, you know, we see that across adults and children's, don't we? I've been asked to look at records of a referral that was put in for a SAR, and you know, the health records refer to making a safeguarding referral. Actually, when you go through the social care records, what you realise is they were referring to children's, for concerns about the children. There were also concerns about the adult, but actually that safeguarding referral wasn't made. So I think that those linking up between adults and children there is really important.
Or agencies, as we are in the session today.
I mean, I think
across
both,
the board.
Completely.
Yeah,
I think both. I think what Sarah's saying, you know, if I'm working with an adult and there's children in there and I might make a MASH referral, that's cool. I can make that and then put that in my notes, but I don't then know what the progress of that is because I can't access it from an adult's perspective.
No.
And then you spend so much time chasing that referral that actually your morning's monopolised just for checking where a referral is. Then on the flip side, you know, it's the same. Somebody might go into, you know, a hospital, or they might have, you know, they might go into somewhere in relation to the NHS. I can't access that neither. So I'm spending my whole morning, afternoon ringing just to ascertain, oh, actually, they've been in hospital for a week or whatever. And, you know, sorry, I don't know who it was that said in the chat, but, you know, you spend your whole time trying to cover yourself, but actually that time is wasted by ringing around various different agencies where it could have just been resolved so quickly if we had, you know, some access to the person's records. And I get it's difficult, but yeah.
And I think Amy and Steve are talking about kind of the two bits fit together beautifully, don't they? This concept that the risk is we are all defensive because we are so busy, but actually the positives of coming together and supporting one another and therefore being able to address issues more quickly. So, you know, we talked about actually, and I think somebody mentioned earlier, the difficulties in identifying who might be involved, but who is already involved with the members of the household. And actually, both questions, A, what might they be able to share, what information might they have they could share with us, but also what do we know that might be useful to them? And then there's the question about, and who's not involved? You know, maybe there are professionals who aren't involved, who should be involved. Where are the gaps? But then looking at how can we all support each other to support that child or adult or family? And I think that's about, again, you know, we all come with different skills, don't we? And I think, as Steve was saying, kind of when you are managing that risk on your own, it can be quite a lonely place to be. But actually, if we're bringing all our skills together, we can better support the family. But also we can, you know, we know through our ARM process, don't we? We can identify who is it who's got the really good relationship with the family, who might be in a better place to have those conversations. And again, that thing about triangulating the information. So the family's told us, I don't know, social care this. Well, have they told the same thing to healthcare colleagues who are going in, or housing colleagues who are going, whatever? So thank you, Chloe. If we could move on.
Okay, so we've got a case scenario for you now to try and link all of this to a case scenario. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. Let me see if it works. Let's see if it works. So you've got a visual of the case scenario, but then I'm going to pop the actual case scenario in the chat so you can just copy it and stick it on a Word document. So you've got a reference. Let me see. Hold on. All right, put it on the chat. Hopefully you can see that. So this case scenario is about the Hill family. So we've got Sally Hill has 3 children. 2 of them, Penny, aged 15, and George, aged 4, live with her at her mother's house. Her mother is Rebecca Smith. She's 70 and is divorced from her partner, not Sally's father. Sally's other child, Henry, 11, lives with his father, Philip Young, who's 40, who has a new female partner, name unknown, and they have a child together, Harriet, age unknown. It is not known why Henry lives with his father. Penny and George's father is Simon Hill, age 41. He died recently in a car accident. Simon's mother and stepfather are Mary and Peter Jones. There is no contact between them and their grandchildren. George is behind on his vaccinations and there are some concerns regarding developmental delay. Rebecca Smith has MS and has had some adaptations to the home and has an OT going into the home, but no assessments from adults to look at her needs. Sally has been having to meet all the care needs for Rebecca and everyone in the home. So that is the case scenario. Now, for those of you who work with genograms, hold on, I'm just trying to stop sharing my screen. For those of you who work with genograms, you may already have started, you know, putting a genogram together as we were talking about this. So what we're going to ask you to do, Chloe, could you show the slide again, please?
Yeah.
What we're going to ask you to do is, firstly, if you could copy and paste the case scenario and the questions that I've popped on the chat, because then when you go into the rooms, it disappears. So just grab that, pop it on a Word document or on an email, wherever you want to. And then what we're going to ask you to do is to consider this case scenario and think about, with the information that you've got, what would you do? And what actions would you take? Remember, you're all from different agencies, so there might be something to think, oh, hold on, I hadn't thought about that. We had that in previous sessions between adult and children practitioners. They said, oh, I never thought about that. So within your groups, think about what you would do, what actions you would take, sorry. And we will give you, what, 10 minutes for that, Sarah? 22.
Yes, that sounds sensible. Yeah.
So
Well,
10
is
So
minutes.
I mean, I think there's a recognition when we're saying about what would you do, what would professionals generally do is what
Professionals,
we're
yeah.
asking,
Yeah.
aren't we? Recognising it might not
Yeah.
be you specifically, but what do you think a multidisciplinary team should be considering and doing in this situation?
Yeah. Okay. We are back in the room. Looks like everyone's back in. So, how did your conversations go? Who wants to start? Should I go through? Let me go to, I don't know if you know what group you were in. Group 1, do you want to feedback one of the points that you may have discussed? People know what groups they were in. You might not have noticed. Kath, thank you.
I think, sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Oh,
perfectly.
good. I think one of the things that we were talking, I mean, there was potentially could be so many agencies that you would need to engage for this whole family. You know, you've got adult social care, children's social care, potentially, you've got education, you've got GP, you could have midwives, you could have an MS specialist. There's lots of agencies that you may need to engage. You know, but and you don't know enough information really, but it's about being aware of those potential agencies that you may need to be part of, you know, supporting this family.
Yeah, something you said that really captured my attention was you don't know and it's that professional curiosity, isn't it? So we don't know. Let's find out. Let's pick up that phone. Yeah. Who else wants to feedback what they were discussing in their groups? Shall I just pick on someone randomly? Suzanne.
Go on, I'll go. I mean, it was pretty much the same conversation, really. I mean, we had a colleague working in primary care, and they have links in schools, so they would explore that route and what was known about the children. We also talked about, you know, making contact with children and adult social care just to see what was known. I mean, in terms of the being behind on the vaccinations, obviously we don't know how long Sally had been living in the mum's house. It might have been a fairly recent thing, so that you know, she hasn't changed her GP, so the letters hadn't come through. So it was really just exploring all those options. You know, Penny, the daughter, being pregnant, you know, how old was her friend at school? Was he older? Is she at risk of exploitation? Yeah, so that, you know, I think a lot more information would be needed on this case. Really, it could all be fairly innocent and exploratory.
Exactly.
And as well, you know, perhaps potentially getting the older siblings to support with Rebecca, the grandmother, just to free up. And it sounds horrendous for Sally, the mum, with so much going on. And having just lost her husband as well. So, but yeah, lots of questions to be asked, I think, really, just as to the, you know, what's going on for this family.
Yeah, which one professional wouldn't have the answers
Not
to,
a
but on their
chance,
own, would they? It's a lot
Definitely
to,
not.
yeah. So that's from what Suzanne and Kath, what you've said, that pretty much sums it up. It's there's lots there. There's lots of different professionals that could be involved. Let's check out the information. It could be actually, no, everything's actually okay, or it could bring up more questions, more exploration, referrals having to be put in, etc., etc. So yes. So thank you for feeding back on that. I'm conscious of the time.
Sorry, Carla, there is somebody else with their hand up.
I didn't see.
It's just a hand. I can't see who it is. Sorry, I just thought.
Who's got their hand up?
It's me. It's Amy.
Amy, sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to suggest off what the last lady said. Sorry, I failed to get the name. in one way, yes, it's about freeing up for mum, but also is to make sure that the 15-year-old isn't acting as a young carer for the grandmother, because she's obviously got a lot on her plate herself, being or about to be a young mum. So it would be I would be suggesting like making sure that mum's got a lot of external support or carer support, so then the 15-year-old's not having to step up as a young carer, because that's a lot of responsibility for her herself
Definitely.
as well. Just protecting like everybody in that family unit,
Yeah.
like holistically looking at it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you raised in previous sessions. People were talking about carers assessments, young carers assessments, so having that balance as well. So no, definitely that's a really good point, Amy. Thank you. I'm going to double check if there are no hands up. Doesn't seem like it. Okay, no hands up. Okay, thank you everybody for that input. So what we've wanted to include here is contact details for statutory social care organisations. We have put in the contact details for West Northamptonshire Council, North Northamptonshire Council and the Northamptonshire Children's Trust on there with the link. So if you do need to report a concern if you're working with somebody, but like we said earlier, if in doubt, you know, pick up that phone, have those conversations. I'm conscious there are lots of organisations here. We do not have every contact number for that, but hopefully from this session, you're going to go back into your agencies and be talking about this. And if you do get a call, you'll be more, not willing, because I think we are willing, it's just time constraints and, you know, but really thinking about this think family approach and having those discussions is what we're really hoping to achieve from this. If I could go to the next slide, please, Chloe, just so that you can see all of the different reading that we've put for you there to read in your leisure. So we've got social work with adults. That blog's actually really quite good. I would subscribe if, you know, well, I'm subscribed. So for people working with adults, you might want to do the same. We've got Care Act fact sheets. We've got the multi-agency hoarding framework. We've got the self-neglect pathway. So these are all NSAB documents available on the NSAB website. We've got the 7-minute briefing for the Think Family. We've got Think Child, Think Parent, Think Family and Introduction. So we've put all websites that you could click and access. So they're accessible to everybody on there for you. And we've got some more bits for you as well. So if you could move on to the next slide, please, Chloe. We've got some additional resources that Maxine shared a lot of these with us. So we've got a tea break that we developed based on this session. On there, we've got lots of information on chronologies, genograms, guidance, the symbols for the genograms. If you ever come across one and you're thinking, whoa, what does this mean? We've got the guidance on there. We've got some of these are from Research and Practice. So the chronology practice tool and the safety networks, I believe, are from Research and Practice. So I've put a little note on there. So in order to be able to access it, you need to physically download the PowerPoint and then it's clickable. So then you can download onto your laptops and read, draw upon them as you need to, really. So I'm hoping that that's helpful to you, or you may want to take these into your team meetings, you know, and discuss with colleagues. Suzanne was saying there are generic safeguarding contacts on the NSAB website, which might be helpful if you need to contact other agencies. That's actually really helpful, Suzanne. Thank you for highlighting that. So really important. It's not just saying contact each other, but here are some numbers that you can ring to get that support in terms of supporting that family. So from a presentation, a session perspective, we have come to an end.